Look at this tall building. This is a building that is under construction in Izmir. Look at how it wobbles.
That's at least a 30, 40-story tall building.
Look.
Supporting
This guy is
columns, yeah.
taking a sample from.
Okay.
Look at this.
Oh yeah, look at that. He just took out a sample from one of
The
the
column
supposedly supporting columns
Yeah.
of the property,
No iron.
and they're saying
whatsoever.
that there's no iron there.
No iron.
Can you imagine that? That's a supporting wall, a supporting column, and there's no iron in it. This is the apartment he bought.
This is the apartment.
This is the
that
apartment
he
your
bought for
friend bought.
$30,000.
For $20,000-$30,000.
Hey guys, welcome back to yet another episode of Straight Talk. Today we have a very, very serious topic, Cameron.
Topical topic.
Very topical, yes.
Very topical.
And the reason why it's topical is obviously because of the recent earthquake that happened in Izmir, which has got a very wide coverage in the mainstream media.
Sure.
And therefore, we asked in our latest episode, which topic you guys want us to cover. So you said earthquake, now we're here and we're doing that. But the thing is, I have to say that we're not experts, yeah? I brought a lot of visual material with me here. We have a screen right over there, which Mr. Cameron and I, we're going to look at it together. And he will be my co-commentator. I will be doing the speaking today widely. And then I'll be asking a few questions after this presentation that I have here, okay?
Perfect.
Now, I have to say this up front. The earthquake in Izmir. I am deeply saddened of what happened to see the people of my city that way. Because when we're talking about Izmir, we're talking about over 100 people who lost their lives.
Is
And
it as many as that?
115 right now, as of November the 8th, as you know, the day that we're
So
filming
115 people actually lost
100
their lives in the
115
Izmir
people.
earthquake.
Yes.
Which actually, relatively speaking, was not an extremely high magnitude earthquake, was it?
True. But you know, if I don't say this up front, I know what's going to happen in the comments. People will be like, "Oh, people have lost their lives. You guys are saying this." No, we get it. We're deeply saddened. Okay, let's say this up front. But we have to give you the true picture.
People ask about earthquakes. I mean,
Yes. So let's talk briefly about Izmir and what happened in the earthquake over there, and then we're gonna move to Istanbul. All right.
Okay.
Now, so the magnitude of the earthquake was 6.6. So I'm gonna try to give you the true picture. Now, this image, this one was the one that has been widely serviced to the international media. This is where the earthquake happened.
that's the epicenter, isn't
Yeah,
it?
this
Just
is-
outside Izmir.
True. This is the epicenter of earthquake. It's rather in Greece. A lot of people have been, a lot of people are familiar with this footage right here. This one big giant building collapsing.
Rubbles. I mean,
Yeah.
it actually turned into ashes almost.
Yeah, it's so bad. So
It's
bad,
like
man.
the people who lost their lives.
Yes.
All happened in those 8 buildings, right?
Yeah, true. Now, let's take a look at this footage, Cameron. This is Izmir city center. Let's stop right here. You're seeing these tall buildings, right?
Yes.
This place is called Bayraklı. And Bayraklı is where the new center of Izmir is. It's just where the high buildings are. So none of those high rises, none of those high buildings, although it's an earthquake, you would naturally expect, oh my God, these high buildings, what are going to happen to them? That is not the case. Nothing happens to these big buildings. The ashes, look, the dust actually rises from the most common type of residential apartments that you would see in Turkey.
The shabby ones,
Yeah,
really.
yeah, the ones that are all around Istanbul as well. Now you're familiar with this building, okay? This one building that we're talking about. Its name is Rıza Bey Apartmanı. Rıza Bey Apartment. Okay?
Okay.
That is the building that collapsed, and that's where a lot of people died. Now, according to a report that was conducted back in 2012, okay, this building was built back in 1993.
Okay.
The building was built back in 1993, so it is before 1999. Okay,
True.
that's an important measure, and it was built according to the earthquake regulations of 1975. Okay, now In 1975, there is now. I mean, this is terrible, but it's an old building, and that generally what happens with the old buildings. I'm gonna link all of these reports down below, and all of these videos as well, so you can also watch it yourself.
Basically, let's hit the nail on the head. It seems to me that the problem in Izmir of those 8 buildings that collapsed was that none of those 8 buildings were earthquake compliant,
No.
to say the least. And
To say
I
the
think
least, yeah.
to go a little bit further, we can say that those 8 buildings were extremely poorly built.
Of course.
Because this is what you were trying to demonstrate.
Of course,
there.
yes. Look at this tall building. This is a building that is under construction in Izmir. Look at how it wobbles.
That's at least a 30, 40 story tall building.
True. Look at how it wobbles. This is actually a good thing.
It wobbles, I mean, it leans about 5-6 degrees, doesn't it?
True.
It kind of, but maybe even more than that, almost close to, I don't know, 7-8 degrees.
Yeah.
It's wobbling quite a bit. But that wobbling is actually what protects the building.
True. True. You need to have it, and that's why we have always been saying, guys, look at new buildings. You know, because this is no joke. If it happens, it happens, and it's your life or your tenant's life at risk. I mean, least of all, it's just your investment that is at risk, right?
Well, lives are at risk. I mean,
True. Okay, let's take a look at this. This is actually a hospital from Elazığ, in Elazığ.
Okay.
And you know Elazığ, right? In the past, when was that? A couple years ago.
oh, there was a massive earthquake.
There was a
there.
massive earthquake, and a lot of buildings got collapsed. Look at the newer technology that is being used. That yellow structure, the yellow thing, when the building wobbles, it keeps it level in place.
I see. I think this is what they use in Japan, isn't it? And I
True.
think in Japan, they're kind of at the top end of this technology.
Yeah, that's what gives you that wobbling.
Yeah, it kind of
Yeah.
it moves.
Now, I wanna say this: Istanbul, yes, Istanbul is at risk. There is an earthquake risk here in Istanbul, but you have to understand the risk. Okay, how big is it? Which buildings are at risk? Would my investment or would my home, would my life be at risk? This is what you need to look at. Okay, now, just for comparison, there's actually a beautiful report from Business Insider. Okay, now these are the earthquakes of the last 100 years. Okay, the
Okay.
major earthquakes around the world, and these are basically the what do you call it? The tectonic plates.
Well, it says
Major fault lines.
magnitude 8 and greater earthquakes. So
True.
this looks at earthquakes that are over 8 and over, basically.
True. Yeah, and you can see where these earthquakes are taking
Either
place.
side of the Pacific. That's
Yes.
what I see.
Now let's name some of these countries that are at major risk, and then let's compare it with the risk that is here in Turkey, right? Okay. Now, Japan, Philippines, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, India, the Himalayan countries, New Zealand. You come further to the west, you're looking at Iran.
From what I
also at
see
risk.
there, Alaattin,
Yeah.
there doesn't seem to be a major fault line that actually crosses Turkey. There's one that crosses the Mediterranean underneath Turkey.
Yeah, this one, right?
Yeah,
this
it
one.
kind of crosses. It goes halfway through the Mediterranean, starts in the
Yes.
eastern Mediterranean, goes toward Italy, Spain, etc.
Italy is located entirely on a fault line.
Italy is on a fault line itself. There's a major fault line that literally crosses Italy from kind of south
Yes.
to north, but there doesn't seem to be a major fault line according to this
Yeah.
that crosses the mainland of Turkey.
Well, actually, there is a continuation of this fault line, which I'm
Okay.
going to show on a very beautifully put
So,
BBC report.
Does that mean that it's a secondary fault line? It's not a primary fault line.
I don't know. I'm
Well,
not.
it's because it's not shown there.
Yes, true. It's
This
not
is
as
meant to
big-
be a map of primary fault lines in the world.
Yes.
The main fault lines, like the continental fault lines. You've got the
Yes.
Australian continent
True.
and India fault line. These fault lines, none of them seem to cross Turkey.
True.
But then there must be some secondary fault lines crossing Turkey.
100%. It's not as big. It's not
Yeah.
as big. The bigger ones are generally in countries like Italy, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco,
Around the
southern part of
Mediterranean,
Spain,
yeah.
most of the western part of South America, Mexico, and also western part of United States, places
True.
like California.
California.
Yeah, California
San
and Los
Francisco,
Angeles is a
etc.,
very
yeah.
prime earthquake location. So Istanbul is not at that level when it comes to the earth itself. Okay,
Yes.
the problem with Istanbul is a more societal problem than the structural problem.
Not
Geological.
Geological.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're getting there. Okay. So we established Istanbul's or Turkey's position. It's not the highest. It's not a Japan. It's not Los Angeles. It's not California. But it's not entire. It's not UK, for example.
It's
okay?
not. It's not earthquake risk free.
True,
Yeah.
true. It's somewhere in the middle, and the reason why it is risky is North Anatolian fault line.
That's
So
it.
now you remember the one that is coming from Iran, that one from the Himalayas
True.
from Iran. Okay, that extends into Anatolia and becomes what is known as the North Anatolian fault line. Okay,
It kind of crosses the northern part of Turkey, doesn't it?
True.
Hence North Anatolian
True.
fault line.
now these are the historic earthquakes over the magnitude of 7 and plus. Okay, Now-
7 and plus.
Sure, yes. In this one, 7.4, that happened in 1999 in Gölcük. This one was actually the most recent one, the most devastating one. And right after this earthquake, a lot of regulations have been
Well,
changed in Turkey.
1999 earthquake was a massive eye opener for Turkey because it cost a
A lot of lives. True.
It did.
Yes, but it
And-
taught us a lot.
Well, of course, it taught us a lot because the sad thing was that most of the loss of life was attributable to very, very poor building conditions.
True, 100%. This guy's a geologist, a member of the American Geological Society. He says that recalculated probability of 7 and plus earthquakes beneath the Sea of Marmara, and there's basically a study. So this earthquake that that is being expected is actually going to be above 7. But again, we're speaking figuratively here. We don't have the sound information whether or not this is going to be that big, this big.
Well, we don't even know when it's going to be. But I mean, I remember that in 1999, when we had the massive earthquake,
Yes.
they were saying, well, the experts were saying that within the next 30 years, there will be another one.
Okay, now this part is important. Like we're talking about Istanbul. Istanbul's a massive city. Not every single neighborhood of Istanbul is the same. These are neighborhoods, Cameron, that are at the biggest risk. Places like Esenyurt, Küçükçekmece, Bağcılar, also some part of Beylikdüzü and
Avcılar,
Bahçeşehir
definitely.
and all
Although
of
it's not
those
included.
areas. And Avcılar as well, yeah.
Silivri also. So basically, if you look at the West European part of Istanbul, and we go down, we drop down from Bağcılar to the Sea of Marmara along the West European side of Istanbul, all that straight along the Sea of Marmara towards Silivri and beyond.
Yes.
And the districts that come above, like Esenyurt, possibly Beylikdüzü or parts
Yes.
of Beylikdüzü, definitely Küçükçekmece, Bağcılar, and Avcılar.
Yes.
These are, and Silivri, these are the main districts that are along that particular stretch of the Sea of Marmara, and they are most risk. Now, why are these places districts at most risk?
Okay,
Is
two-
it
two reasons.
geographical or is it something else?
Okay, there are basically two risks. Okay,
Okay.
The risk factor number one is definitely the geographical, the composition of the ground itself, because in those areas the ground is not solid, like Şişli and Beyoğlu and Beşiktaş
not
and these
rocky.
areas. Istanbul is built on hills and hills,
Of course.
and this is actually one of the concerns of some of our clients. They're saying, "Oh, your city is beautiful, but it's all uphill." Well, you know what? thanks for those uphills, we might stay alive. I mean, those uphills might really save us.
Because it actually provides for a strong, rocky ground.
100%. But the reason why these places are at risk, number one, is because of the ground composition. Number two is because of the poorly built apartments.
In one particular period, which is around sort of late 80s, well, mid 80s, all the way up to year 2000.
Yes.
You're looking at a 15-year or so time period where some very, very shabby buildings were built in Istanbul. And the reason I kind of specify that particular era is because if you look at Esenyurt, Beylikdüzü, to a great extent Küçükçekmece, certainly those areas, they developed in that era. Like if you went to Esenyurt or Beylikdüzü.
Okay, right here, right? Okay, now, okay. You see that neighborhood?
Yeah.
You know, and places like that. These apartments are not all of them, but generally, these apartments are old, and
look at them. Look at them. Hold on. Just stop it there. Can you stop it there?
Yes, yes.
I mean, just look at those buildings. I mean, I would say to you that hardly any proper iron, or well, let alone steel, but hardly any proper iron has been used in the construction of those buildings. Majority of the buildings in these areas, they're at risk.
True.
And I think this is what the statistics are also telling us. If you looked at the statistics a while ago.
Okay, check this news report now. Okay. It says kolonlarda demir bile yok. You know what does this mean? It means that no iron in the columns. Look. This guy is taking a sample from. Okay. Look at this.
Oh yeah, look at that. He just took out a sample from one of the supposedly supporting columns.
Yeah.
Of the property.
No iron.
And they're
whatsoever.
saying that there's no iron there.
No iron.
Can you imagine that? That's a supporting wall, a supporting column, and there's no iron in it.
I mean, to me, it's just this is like a joke, man.
Oh, okay. That particular building. Okay.
Look at this.
Just put a nice paint over it. It could look half decent with a paint over it.
Yeah.
The fact that there is no paint on it, it kind of looks shabbier than most other buildings that look a little bit better. Yeah. But the reality is, I would say to you at least 60-70% of the stock in these areas are very much like the buildings you're showing now.
Yes.
Very much like the buildings. And the thing is, and this is something I would like to underline. Look at that. Just very typical. Very, very, very typical. You could go down to Esenyurt Beylikdüzü and you could pick a 2-bedroom apartment in one of these buildings for $25,000.
Yeah.
And the interesting and the unfortunate thing is that we do get clients who just do not want to understand what we tell them about these buildings.
True.
Then you'd have someone coming back to you saying, hey, my friend just bought a building, a 2-bedroom apartment in Esenyurt for $30,000.
Yeah.
Well, this is the apartment he bought.
This is the apartment
that he bought your friend bought for $20,000-$30,000. I mean, the thing is,
guys, don't
worth it.
fall for these things. Okay?
It isn't worth it.
A 2-bedroom apartment, 100 squares of an apartment, cannot even be $15,000, $20,000.
It can't be.
If this guy is using all that iron, all that concrete. Okay.
If this guy is putting in decent quality into that apartment, there's no way he's going to sell it for $30,000. So if you are buying an apartment in Istanbul for $20,000, $30,000, $35,000, please ask yourself why. Well, more importantly, how? Well, this is how. This is what they're selling. This is what they're selling. So the question really is it worth risking the life of your loved ones? Never mind your investment. Forget the investment. But is it worth risking lives over this?
Look at this, man.
I don't think so. But unfortunately, millions and millions of people live in these circumstances in Turkey.
Well, that's another aspect. That's a social aspect. And good
Well,
thing
hence
that you brought this up.
hence the massive push
Yes.
toward urban regeneration, which is something that we keep
Exactly.
going on and on about.
Yes.
Particularly directed toward investors. Urban regeneration.
Yes.
This is why we have such massive urban regeneration initiatives in Istanbul.
In Istanbul, 350,000 buildings are at risk. Cameron, these are the buildings right across our office. We took some footage
Hold on,
today.
Let me rationalize this. This is Japan International Cooperation Agency.
Okay, let me get
So,
back to Japan.
where does Japan come into this?
Okay,
Or is this a report published by some
No.
Japanese agency?
What Turkey does is, I mean, since Japanese people are the experts when it comes to earthquake and stuff like that, Turkey invites experts from Japan to test out, you know.
Okay, they're saying that 350,000 buildings
Yes.
are at risk.
Half of
Shabby,
Istanbul.
basically.
40% of Istanbul.
Basically, buildings that no one should live in, really, under normal
Exactly.
circumstances.
Yes.
And I would say to you that the average number of units within a building is higher than 10.
True.
So I'd say to you the figure is probably more like 5 million, which means 5 million homes are at risk
100%.
should there be an earthquake in Istanbul. And it is expected that within the next 10 years, there will be an earthquake in Istanbul.
We don't know that.
Well, it is expected.
It can be like 2050, 2060. We don't know.
The last
Yeah.
episode, we covered demand and supply in Istanbul, and as we were covering that, quite an interesting statistic had come up, which showed that in the last 3 to 5 years, the proportion of new build properties to total number of properties sold in Istanbul is on the increase. If I remember correctly, in 2013, only about 3% of all units sold in Istanbul were newly built.
Yes.
But in 2019, that figure
40%.
had gone up to 40%. And we were estimating that in 2020 and beyond, that number is going to be well over 50%.
100%.
So, do you remember in that episode we said there are some real good reasons behind that, which we're not going to go into in this episode?
Yes.
Well, I'd say to you that earthquake is the number one reason why people in
100%.
Istanbul are going for new build properties,
I mean,
as opposed
if
to old
the
ones.
locals Cam, this is
Well,
not
locals,
rocket
Istanbul
science. This is
people,
not rocket science. If the locals are going towards newly built properties, what does this tell you? It tells you that these people are living in the city. They're watching the Turkish news all the time.
Yeah.
They're seeing all the risk. They're walking on the streets and seeing those shabby and old homes, and you know they're terrified. That's why they are moving, you know, towards newly built at an increasing number. Now let's take a look at this video, okay?
Yeah.
You know these buildings, right? Oh my God. Now, you know these buildings, right? We have these buildings in our portfolio, and these are the buildings that are in the Asian side, Bosphorus view places, okay? Now, look at the groundwork, okay? They dig in, they continue. So I don't have the constructional, you know, the expertise to tell you one by one what is happening, but from somebody who's been in the industry for a while now, I can tell you, just look at the amount of concrete and amount of iron that is being used. Look at how deep they're going down.
How deep the foundations are. And I'd say to you, this is not going to be a particularly tall building, because in this particular part of Istanbul, I think the height restriction is about 7-8 floors.
Oh, this
No
is
more than
even
that.
gonna be 3-floor building.
Oh, is it?
It's going to be a 3-floor building.
Despite that, you've got some very deep foundations, and you can see a
Look
lot
at
of
this
iron, a lot of hardcore stuff being used. So
take a look at here. How
yeah,
deep they
I
went
can
in for
see.
three.
I can see the platforms there. The way they've done the
Huge
foundations very thick. So definitely, building regulations in the last 10-15 years have improved tremendously in Istanbul. Tremendously. And I think One of the major reasons that the build quality has improved tremendously in the
Yeah.
last 10, 15 years is that the regulations are being enforced.
Yes.
And sample check developments, as far as I know, at least 3 times. One
Yes.
at the foundation stage, one at the carcass stage, and one at the end when they're giving ISKAN.
Right now, it's very hard, man.
Yeah.
It's very hard to obtain a construction permit. It's very hard. I mean,
Without being earthquake compliant.
exactly.
Yeah.
Hard. I'm not saying it's hard because they don't want you to build. What I'm saying is it is a very detailed process.
Yeah.
Okay? Now,
According to this particular map, the safest areas to be in
Şişli,
are Şişli, parts of Beşiktaş, I guess,
Beyoğlu,
Beyoğlu, Sarıyer, places like Zekeriyaköy,
yeah, Kağıthane and Eyüp.
Kağıthane and Eyüp,
Eyüp are
parts of
pretty
Eyüp, Kağıthane, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Even some parts of Gazi Osman Pasha.
absolutely. So these are basically the safest grounds in Istanbul as
Yeah.
far as earthquake is concerned. So basically, in theory, buildings built after the new earthquake regulations can withstand 9.4% for Richter scale, which is a massive earthquake. I think
The chance of happening of it
well, I
is
think the
zero.
biggest earthquake ever recorded.
7 point.
No, the biggest
What?
earthquake ever recorded.
Are you
was
talking
up,
about in the country?
in the world?
Okay.
In the
In the
world,
world.
ever
In the world.
recorded
Okay.
ever, if I remember correctly, because I had looked it up, was something close to 9 Richter scale.
Dude, plates. You know,
Yeah,
the
tectonic
continents
plates,
shift.
they
you know?
shift. Yeah,
In
so that's the
line,
biggest earthquake. But I think the biggest earthquake ever recorded in Turkey was 7 point something.
Yeah. Anyway, very long episode. Thank you very much for Cameron
Thanks a lot.
Deggin. Comment your questions down below, and always with this.
If there
WhatsApp
are any
number.
other natural disasters you wish us to cover, we're more than happy to do
Next
so.
episode, tsunami.
Tsunami.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we don't have that in Turkey. Any more ideas? Comment it down below. And with this WhatsApp number, you can reach us. And thank you for staying this long, and see you in the next episode.